I think we have done well as a school. It's a well-represented school across all the domains.
Yes.
Whether it is consulting, whether it is consumer products, whether it is product and technology, whether it's IB and P. In a very short duration for a school to, signal to the industry that we have variety of talent. I think that's one of the greatest achievement that we have achieved.
I visited the BITSoM campus for the first time 6 months back. The discussions with the faculty, the dean, the administration, and of course the students was more about what the potential of the school is and what it has to offer. 6 months later, the first founding batch of BITSoM has already been placed. And today the discussions will be a lot more reflective. Of course, have a potential about the future as well. But the idea will be to cover the story behind the placement numbers, how they have achieved them, and more importantly, are the students happy with their ROI or the outcome that they have from BITSoM. So this will be my second day at BITSoM, and it will be a more reflective one for the school and to some extent for myself as well. So now I'm sitting with the Industry Partnerships and Career Services IPCS team, which is also known as placements to us laymen. And we'll be talking about how the placements for the founding class have been, what went behind the scenes, and more importantly, the numbers that have come out of it. Also the plans for the coming year. So first of all, thank you Mandar and Uday for taking out time and speaking with us again. We spoke earlier in October around the plans, and now everything has come to fruition. So first of all, what's the feeling? First batch, placements are done. How happy are you?
Well, Manan, first of all, thank you so much for being here once again. It's a good feeling, if you ask me, because we have been in existence now for almost little less than 2 years. But there's a fantastic progress which has been made. Just to build on what we did during the last 2 internships, we spoke when we conducted our second internship, and we already had seen some delta come by. First placement's little unpredictable as a new school, but I think progress has been quite good. Overall, I think there's a good feeling within all the stakeholders. I will definitely speak more about the numbers as we gradually progress in our discussion. But as a new school, I think quite proud for what we have achieved so far.
So let's talk about numbers only, because that's what people are interested in, unfortunately or fortunately. So yes.
So we have concluded our structured placements in the month of January. And like any other B school, it basically succeeds with a rolling place. So far, I think we are in a very healthy state. If I have to throw some numbers, I would say that approximately 65 plus firms so far have participated, and around about 48 firms have recruited our students. We have generated 130 plus offers for a class of 138. There are still few special cases with whom we are working, and we are very confident that by the time we come to the graduation, they would be placed. In terms of numbers, I think we are looking at a very healthy average of CTC of 24 lakhs. We are in that vicinity, anything between 23 and a half to 24. A median is around about 23. That's a number I can say with confirmation. But in terms of some, very high reflective numbers, the top 10% of the class has got somewhere, in the range of 35 to 37. The top 30% of the class has got above 30 lakhs, and approximately 50% of the class is in the range of 26 to 27. So I think by and large, I think the school has done well. I've always believed in that philosophy that we are capitalists, but with a socialistic ideology.
Right. So majorly, if you look at the average coming into around 23, 24, we are looking at freshers getting placed below those numbers that you're talking about, which is fair for a lot.
See, we are a 2-year MBA program. So,
Yeah.
it would, and because I come from, my previous assignment was with ISB, and we were dealing with talent, which came with experience. So it would not be a fair comparison, even for me, to look into my professional pride. But as a 2-year MBA program with the average vintage of 2.5 years of work, I think it's a very, very healthy number. By and large population has done extremely well. And more so, I think is what is critical is that we should see the delta, the pre and post salary delta. That's quite a substantial jump what the students are getting.
What kind of companies have come in? What kind of roles have come in? Could you shed some light on that?
So as far as companies are concerned, we had all the top names across domains and industries which came in. Just to give you a quick checklist, so to say. From the strategy consulting side, we had the top names. McKinsey had come in, Bain and Company came in, Arthur D. Little was there, Kearney was there, We had boutique consulting companies like MXP Consulting, Praxis Consulting, which came in. The Big Fours were there. And typically, in terms of the roles that they brought on campus, these were all the same kind of roles that go to the top tier campuses, the tier 1 campuses, so to say. And so in terms of representation on the campus, definitely the consulting companies were there. From the FMCG domain, we had the likes of the Unilevers, Nestle, Pidilite, all of them were there. The domestic banks were there, like ICICI, Kotak Bank, Yes Bank. We had, IBPE firms, which for a new school typically is not so much of a regular feature, but we were kind of able to bring these top firms also to campus this year. We had the top conglomerates that came in. ABG Group came in. We had Pidilite, as I mentioned earlier. Philips Lighting, that Signify came in. We had a good number of all these companies that came in. British Petroleum brought their global program to the campus. SKF did come in with their global graduate program. So it's been a good mix across the board.
Yeah. And you talk about IB, PVC firms. That's, I think, still a growing area for Indian B schools in general. So can you talk about which firms came in, what kind of roles that they were?
So we had the likes of Steer Advisors, which came in. We had companies like Avista Advisory, which came in and hired students. 8 Capital came in. We had Servin Ventures. In fact, Servin actually is intending to set up an office in India, and the hire that they have made this year, the guy is going to be actually running the show as far as the India office is concerned. He's going to set up the office, going to take the office forward. So that's the kind of opportunity that exists for.
Right. Yeah. I mean, just to add to what Mandar said, I think IBP more so, they look at summer internships as the conduit to do the hiring. So that representation will be very large whenever we get into a summer process. But all the names, in fact, even I will add Meresis also, which was a new addition for this year. I think we have done well as a school. Last time also that I spoke, it's a well-represented school across all the domains.
Yes.
Whether it is consulting, whether it is consumer products, whether it is product and technology, whether it's IB and PE. In a very short duration for a school to, signal to the industry that we have variety of talent. I think that's one of the greatest achievement that we have obtained. Many legacy schools took many years to reach to that point, and we are aware about it. I think that way we have progressed well. Of course, we live in different eras. It's a 2-year MBA program. It helps students to explore different career paths. Even the companies also can, trial and test the talent because of the internship which has been inbuilt in a 2-year MBA. But overall, I think the results have been quite encouraging. This is a school which is not for one specific industry, but it provides talent across the domain.
Correct. And then let's, you talk about other B schools as well. And from an applicant standpoint, unfortunately, they would look at, average numbers across. Okay, so they'll look at 30 lakhs, which has been thrown around a lot of B schools that are there. And here we are with anywhere between 23 to 27, I would say, the broad range. So how do you think you stack up, or what are the plans and those kind of things?
See, relatively, we are a smaller school. When I say smaller, in terms of numbers also. So when you have a class size of around about 138, definitely you cannot get that large volume which come on campuses which have students in the range of 650 to 800.
Yeah.
So obviously, the larger set of offers also is basically results in higher CTC. We will keep improving on it because this was our first year. But if you see the top 10% or the top 30% that I spoke about, it's pretty much comparable to any legacy school.
Yeah.
And also we have to remember the fact, the delta that we are rendering.
I think that's a big point that people need to think of. Plus, I think it's more around looking at experience ranges and then comparing apples to apples for these B schools as well, in some sense.
Yeah.
Finally, or second last question, what do you think would have gone better?
Maybe Mandar will be in a better position to answer that.
So this year we had about 45 plus PPOs that came in. So almost about 1/3 of the batch had PPOs, and the acceptances also were quite good. We had about 37 odd acceptances that we had. Now, typically for a 2-year MBA program, usually about 50 to 60% of the batch gets placed via the PPO route. In fact, quite a few of the industries do use that route as a regular route for hiring. So as far as we are concerned, we'll definitely work towards that. And, as we go along, I'm sure a larger part of the cohort will get placed using the internship route. That I think is something that we'll definitely keep working on. And, doing more of the things which have been working well. So we'll probably continue to use the Miller-Hyman model that we use. As far as reaching out to buyers across industries are concerned, we'll continue to broaden the base. We'll continue to work towards that so that next year, we have even better numbers.
Right.
Once we have the alums go out in the market and perform, I think that will definitely add more traction to the to the placements in the coming years. And I think we'll continue doing our good work that we have been doing on the admissions front. Our process is extremely different and it reflects to many of the global business schools. We look for a talent which is absolutely holistic. It is just not limited to good test takers. I think when I have worked with ISB, I've studied in IE Business School. I think BITSoM gives a good reflection of many global business schools. We are trying to bring a perfect balance. We are trying to get in students who are academically strong, at the same time who have contributed well towards the community, who have been good when it comes to the co-curricular activities. They have shown regular spikes as far as they being potential leaders. And who can contribute not only for business and technology, but also who can be good corporate citizens. So that's the endeavor. Our recruitment pool is a little different from the traditional 2-year MBA programs which prevail in India. I think we are very similar to what ISB does for a 1-year MBA program. So I think drawing comparisons also in terms of just salary would not be a fair thing to do.
Correct. And finally, see, we are almost in a recessionary phase as far as the markets are concerned. So how do you think it would impact the current class, the first years, in terms of graduating next year? And what are the plans, let's say, for the people who are about to apply here and who look at internships as the immediate goal? So how do you think your plans are stacked up for the upcoming years?
So as a 2-year MBA program, we are the only school in the country which has a dedicated career services team. I think so by having this team and the model that we deploy, it's basically we try to de-risk. Whenever there's a recession, there are few industries which get impacted. Our idea is to de-risk the entire process by having a greater spread across the industry, across the domain. Last year itself, we had some 300 plus client meetings. We will continue building on that. I think there's a good template that has got created during the last 2 summers. Very confident in terms of having a better performance for this upcoming summer internship for the class of 2026, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. And we had almost 50 plus companies participating. I see that number to go up to anything in the range of 55 to 60. We already have seen a lot of confirmations coming in from the FMCG sector, from the IVP consulting. I don't see any reason why not they would revisit us because of the kind of experience that they had. So I think everything is looking good and healthy as far as BITSoM is concerned. I think we are on the right track of institution building, and we'll see this results also to have a similar kind of an effect on the final placements also when we enter into January 2024.
So thank you so much, Mandar and Uday, for taking out time and sharing your perspectives. I'm sure things are looking up for the school and your team as well. So all the best for this year and the next. So anything else, closing remarks, anything else you want to cover?
So as closing remarks, I'll say the best is yet to come. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you,
Manan. Thank you so much for visiting us, and always lovely talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Manan.
So now I'm sitting with Supriya, Samarth and Shashank. If you remember back in December 2021, we had a Zoom session with them, and so great to meet them in person. And they've almost completed their BITSoM journey. They've been placed at really great companies. So I want to talk about their experience so far, how their placements have been, and more importantly, what is the ROI of an MBA that they have got from BITSoM. So thank you guys for taking out time. So first of all, why don't you just tell us in terms of where you started from, in terms of your pre-MBA role, where did you go for internships and where are you heading now post BITSoM? So Supriya, let's start with you.
Sure. So before BITSoM, I worked for a year at an edtech company called Jove as a marketing writer. And over the summer, I interned at the Hershey company in the financial planning and analysis department. And for my final placements, I'll be joining McKinsey and Company as a junior associate.
Very nice. Samarth?
So post completing my engineering from NIT Surathkal, I joined Samsung R&D. I was a senior engineer there for 3 years. After that, I joined BITSoM, and during my summer internship, I interned at OYO Rooms, and now I'm heading to McKinsey and Company like Supriya as a junior associate.
Nice.
So after completing my chartered accountancy, I joined ICICI Bank. I was in the SME department. Post which I joined BITSoM. I interned at the Aditya Birla Group in their LEAP program, and now I'll be working with PwC in their deals department.
Okay, so this is more investment banking kind of
Yes,
a role
it
than
is.
consulting. Yeah.
Yes, it's more on investment banking, startup funding side rather than on consulting side.
So great, you're a VC in a consulting firm. Good job in that. Right. So let's rewind back 2 years. 2 years is a long journey, I'm sure, for you guys. First it was COVID, then you came on campus, first year and first batch at BITSoM. What are the reflections? If you can tell me one greatest experience or greatest thing that happened to you, and one not so great thing that, of course, can be improved. So let's start with you, Samarth.
So I think the kind of faculty who taught us were phenomenal, and the way they brought in the experience from wherever they taught, that was great, and we were able to bridge the gap that we thought that a new B school would bring through those faculty. But one thing that I feel that could have been better was we didn't have seniors. So during our placements, we did face those hiccups of who do we look for advisors. But towards the end, through the support of our batchmates and reaching out to people on LinkedIn, I think we were able to do it quite well. But I feel going back, if that gap would have been bridged, it would have been great.
Supriya?
Sure. So it's been a wonderful experience the past 2 years. If I look at the person that I was 2 years ago and the person I am now, I feel like it's really been a journey of growth and transformation. So I think one sort of personal thing that represents that is when you come in at the beginning of BITSoM, you do these psychometric assessments to kind of evaluate who you are as a person. Because an important part of management is being able to first manage yourself, right? And so there we did a Myers-Briggs test, a pretty popular test. And I was an ISTJ as per that test. And I've always been an ISTJ throughout my life. And that test also gives you a scale where on a scale of 0 to 100, how far down are you on each spectrum. And so I was a pretty strong ISTJ right up to the 100 mark. But over the course of the 2 years, now I recently did the MBTI test again, and I can see how the scores have sort of become a lot more balanced, really come to the middle. And I think that kind of represents more agility, more flexibility, the ability to deal with different kinds of situations and be a different person depending on what the context is. And I think that's sort of a result of the core curriculum and also the student body here at BITSoM. I think it's because of them that I've been able to grow in that way.
Right. Zhang?
So one of the greatest thing, in my opinion, were the people in BITSoM. Everyone who was associated with it, be it my peers, be it the professors, be it the admin staff, I think we have a great connection with all of them, and at least I have learned a lot from my peers, especially the two who are sitting next to me, like a lot of it. So I think people were the most important or were the highlights of BITSoM for me. And as far as one thing which could have been improved, I think I agree with Samar that we did not have seniors. So it was a bit chaotic as far as placements were concerned when we had to look up to someone, or we did not have past materials about what questions or what to study or from where to study. Apart from that, if I had to add, I would say if we had a campus, it would have been a great experience, like be it from a sports angle or be it from cultural angle, it would have been a great experience to have a campus life.
Right. So you talk about placements and, clearly lack of alums definitely becomes an issue. So how was the preparation for that, for specifically your roles in consulting? McKinsey requires a lot of prep, case prep, etc. And with you as well, coming in from a finance background was one thing, but then moving on and moving into a consulting IB role. So how was the placement experience overall in terms of preparation and, during the time when the companies were here?
So for McKinsey, at least, we had an amazing McKinsey buddy program. And part of this program was that we were mapped with BITS alumni who are currently working at McKinsey. So they were extremely useful in terms of providing resources, providing interview and case prep. So that was one really helpful aspect of it. And apart from that, we also had help with interview prep from an external agency that BITSoM brought in.
What about you, Shashank? Different prep for any IB kind of a role?
So it was more of a collective effort from the batch itself. Like we had a lot of peer-to-peer interviews. Juniors had chipped in as well during our interview prep. And we also had some sort of mentorship sessions from an external agency. So that helped a lot.
What about you, Samarth? Any different for you, considering you coming from a tech background? I know we interacted a lot during placements, but anything apart from that?
So I think one more thing that I would like to mention here is, because I did not have any prior consulting experience and I had made up my mind to join a consulting firm soon after I had done my summer internship. So a few things that students neglect is the resume preparation as well as the behavioral interview part. So for that, apart from what Supriya had mentioned about getting a buddy from McKinsey, I also reached out to other people from McKinsey through LinkedIn and got my resume refined. So I think it was my 11th or 12th draft that I submitted that finally got me through it. So that was important, that you have the drive within yourself to reach out to more people rather than just getting confined to what is being provided to you.
So Supriya, you mentioned about change in MBTI. So Dean always talks about thinking long term, developing long term perspective. This is like a training school, so to speak, where the inputs and processes are getting right, and then that will have a compounding effect going forward. So do you think from when you came in versus now, how have your perspectives changed in general, who you are as a person overall, and your outlook about business and life in some sense? So how has the 2-year experience at BITSoM changed you for good or for not so good? So why don't you start, Samarth?
So I think one thing before joining BITSoM for me was immediately making a decision as soon as I see an information. Never thinking through that whether this is a limited information or whether this is a complete in itself. And the most important part is asking clarifying questions. So I think these are some of the tangible parts that have changed within me. And one thing that you spoke about, the long-term thinking, a lot of steps I think the BITSoM is taking right now, we might not see the results immediately, but 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the line, we will be seeing all of that materialize into the B school. So I think that is one of the perspectives that has changed for me.
Shashank?
So my perspective has changed a lot. I would say that I was a short-term thinker. After my MBA, I think I've started thinking long-term. A great example of this is we were being advised to try to get into a domain which we want to work throughout our life, because it's not about the immediate outcome which you get, but the probability of you excelling in a domain which you like is way more higher than you just getting into a domain which is maybe offering you a higher pay at this point in time. So I think thinking long term is something which is really important and which I've gained through this MBA program.
Supriya?
Right. So I think that for me, just like Shashank said, I'm not so focused on immediate outcomes. I think more about learning and growth opportunities associated with what I do. And I think, a couple of years ago, if you had asked me at the beginning of the program, where do I see myself in 10 years? I'd probably give you a role, I'd give you a company. But now if you ask me that question again, I would also tell you what kinds of skills I see myself having, what kind of person I see myself being, and what capabilities I would have developed by that time. Because at the end of the day, those are the things you can control. You can't necessarily control what role and company you're at. So I think in that sense, my vision for the future has become a lot more well-rounded.
Right. And a related question again, from an applicant standpoint, a lot of you guys were applicants before, and ROI to them is immediate from a program. Financially, I'm sure, you guys have killed it. And Uday already has mentioned a lot. But coming in versus going out, do you think the ROI has been met or not met in some sense from BITSoM? Shashank?
So I personally think ROI cannot be calculated immediately. This is my opinion. I personally believe it's more about getting into the right domains. It's about, like Supriya mentioned, it's about getting those skill sets. It's about meeting right kind of people. It's about having right mindset, right vision, because it's not an immediate journey. I personally believe it's like a 40-year long or a 35-year long career in which you need to calculate a ROI. I believe you can calculate your MBA ROI only at 60 when you are retiring.
Okay. Supriya?
Yeah, I agree with Shashank. So I think the most important thing when calculating ROI is looking at, the present value of growth opportunities, right? Looking at, what you're going to get in terms of learning in the future. And to really make the most of those learning opportunities, you need to have, the ability to actually extract the most value from them. And I think over the past years, I definitely have developed that attitude. I've developed the ability to ask the right questions and extract that kind of value. So in that sense, I expect to be reaping the rewards of, that learning and growth mindset in the future.
So I feel we have a very traditional approach to ROI by seeing what is immediate in front of us. But we forget while calculating our decision of joining a B school, we have multiple factors in our mind. But while calculating ROI, we chuck all of that and we just take one factor there. So I think we should take the collective thing as a whole while calculating it. And there are two things: skills and connections. These are the two intangibles that are going to bring in much more value in future. So I think in that sense, I think we had a great peer experience, and as well as the connections that we are making, probably it will bring in much more value in future than what we are calculating right now.
And finally, in terms of applicants who are looking to apply to BITSoM this year or coming years, what's your message to them? If you had to put your now an alum and a mentor hat, what would your message to them be?
Yeah. So mine would definitely be treat it as an opportunity for self-reflection, this application, right? So don't just jump into the application. Seriously, take some time off. Think about who you are as a person. What are your areas for improvement? What do you really want to get out of this program? And only then start writing your application. Don't focus on the granular things like these were my ACADS in 10th, I did badly in this subject. That's all a very small part of your application. It's important to think holistically about who you are as a person.
Yeah, completely agree to what Supriya said. A lot of things in your application can't be changed, such as your past academic record or scores. So look for areas that can be improved, and look for the time that will take to improve them. And last words for the applicants: opportunities are always looking forwards, not backwards.
So I personally think its applications are more about reflection. You need to take time, and I personally believe that the interviewer in any case, in any interview, is trying to look for your story. So I think it's more about reflecting and trying to find those appropriate stories and conveying the interviewer about your story.
And finally, in terms of looking back, if just one thing that you could have done differently in the past 2 years, what would that be? Just Samad.
I think I participated a lot less in extracurricular, too focused on getting the desired outcome. So I think one thing that I would change was to participate in a lot more activities and involve in a lot more events.
We have 1 more month to do that.
Yeah.
I would say I participated a lot in the sporting activities. I would say I would have loved to participate in cultural and other club activities. I think that would have been like an holistic experience. But having said that, I think I'm content with what I've done.
I think I would have been a lot more intentional in documenting everything that I have learned in the past 2 years. Of course, I took notes in class, but a lot of learning happens outside the classroom. And I wish I had taken more time to put that on paper, because I think I would really value it in the future.
Right. And great that you guys thankfully didn't mention I could have studied more. But then nobody does that after a B school. So thank you guys. Thank you so much for taking out time, and really, looking forward to seeing you in the industry and, doing really, really well. And all the best for the next 1 month. Enjoy. This is the best time of your life, frankly, because after that it'll be job and other things. So just keep at it and enjoy. Thank you so much.
Thanks, man.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye-bye.
So right now I'm sitting with Dr. Banerjee, the Dean of BITSoM, and we will be talking about his reflections in the past couple of years now that the class is about to graduate, and more importantly, what are the outcomes achieved in terms of what they had set out to do. So thank you, Dr. Banerjee, for taking out time again and speaking with us. So first question, how do you feel? The first batch is about to go out.
Always a pleasure to speak to you, Manan. Feelings are mixed. I think at one level, we are very proud of what so many of these students have achieved. And you can actually see some of these individual journeys happening. Mixed in the sense that, yeah, some of them will not be walking the corridors, and you've kind of got used to walking the corridors. You know them at a human level. So I think that's a teacher's dilemma. It's always there in every institution. You connect with students and you connect with students deeply. But to give you examples, I think what we've tried to do is focus on the overall development of the student, and also look at a self-aware, balanced student through multiple things. I've spoken to you about that. But to just give you examples, I think it results in some of the students making very interesting choices. We had this student called Nilesh Maheshwari, who interned with a private equity firm in the US, and that was a remote internship. And it was very clear at the beginning of the internship that they will offer him good work, but there is no chance of his getting a job in the United States. So there was no placement linkage. Yeah. But it was a good internship. He wanted to learn. He was happy. Now it turns out he finishes his internship. They like him so much that they set up an India office. And they give him the assignment of setting up the India office. And now tomorrow there will be 2 more people from BITSoM interning with that firm. And Nilesh will probably be in charge of mentoring. So, he was entrepreneurial. He had run his own business. He had that initiative. Again, he's finished in the top 10 students in the batch at the end of the first year. But his initiative, his desire to learn, his curiosity, and when I spoke to the recruiter, they said that, look, this guy would attend meetings at 2 o'clock in the morning, and he would have minutes and he would be fresh. So the kind of ownership, commitment that these guys have. So there are other stories. There is a girl who's joined McKinsey, and she had an offer from a consumer product firm. Yeah. And then as part of our process, for some of our students, McKinsey does a bit of a mentoring process. Not all of those go to McKinsey, but they get mentored by, BITS Pilani seniors who are in McKinsey. And through that, she discovered that consulting was something she had a forte for. And that changed her move and that changed her decision. And today, she's with McKinsey. So, at a market level, it's a remarkable achievement because the school in its first year has 2 students in McKinsey. At another level, she's also made a choice that she'll be happier with because she's looked at multiple things. I'll give you a third thing. I've been teaching across multiple institutes, and I've taught at the IIMs, I've taught at various places. You typically find that the engagement and ownership post-placement declines, right? I have been teaching an e-commerce course here where I've curated with multiple speakers. We had Harish Chawla coming in, we had Vivek Sundar coming in. All of them have commented the batch is curious and wants to learn. So that attitude of learning and that attitude of looking at the MBA not just as something that ends with a job, but as a preparation for many careers ahead, I think we've been able to see it. And I think that will reflect in outcomes down the line. Because what is going to happen is you can't guarantee that any of these guys, their companies 10 years down the line will have roles for them. But are you preparing for the next role? Do you have that flexibility? Do you have that learnability? I think that entrepreneurial element also in BITSoM itself, they've experienced so many ups and downs. So I think resilience and self-awareness will be 2 strengths these guys will go out with.
You've talked a lot about getting the processes right. One part obviously is down to career choices. Personal development is one thing that I've personally witnessed with my journey at ISB, that I was a totally different person when I entered and versus when I came out. Do you see the same with the students as well?
I think personal development is huge. And I think some of it happens because of the quality of classroom input and the fact that you have courses not only on core, but courses on soft skills, courses on collaboration, courses on learning agility. So one part is curriculum. But the second aspect is the individualized attention that we are able to give with a small batch. The fact that everybody has gone through psychometrics, everybody who's gone through a session with Dr. Leena, I've backed it up. Typically, you have a corporate mentoring program. So they know themselves a lot better. They are more comfortable in their own skin than the average MBA. So they will, over a period of time, make better choices. I think that I have seen. And when we saw them coming back from internships, we saw confidence because they saw that input made a difference to how they performed on the workplace. And I can see that. I can also see this, that, when students come in the first year, if a student has to ask you a question, that the question is 15 words, but they're asking it in 50 words. Yes. Today, I'm able to see a student asking a 15-word question in 15 to 20 words. I'm seeing the answers becoming much crisper. So I think they have mastered communication to a much greater extent. And this is something that industry wants so badly that it becomes a differentiator.
Especially in the times of ChatGPT, you have to ask the right questions.
Yeah. And maybe people are also learning how to ask questions to ChatGPT, but that's a whole separate story.
But yeah, definitely enhance the skills. In terms of placement numbers that you've seen, any thoughts, any reflections on that?
I think in terms of numbers, if you look at any of the newer IIMs in their initial years, or you look at any institute in a 2-year program, I think we have the best first-year outcomes for a 2-year program ever. to have a McKinsey, to have a JP Morgan, to have a Bain, to have an Arthur D. Little, to have a Unilever, and to have these companies recruit and be happy with quality, I think it is great. Having said that, do we want to get better? Yeah, we want to get better very, very fast. I think what you find here is that some sectors, and I would specifically look at FMCG, because I think we have a very good marketing cohort. We have excellent marketing curriculum, and this is being spoken about in the market. Technology and marketing intersection with BITSoM is doing very well. The FMCG companies typically have a 2 to 3 year evaluation process. So while some companies like a Unilever and a Pidilite have been quick to adopt and come to BITSoM, I think you will see many more of these companies now entering, and those conversations have already happened. So you will see that moving very, very quickly. So we will get better in terms of the numbers very quickly. Also, what will happen is we will get better in terms of the deepening. So if a McKinsey has taken 2 from the first batch, you will see that number expanding. Because what happens also in B schools is that there is a particular type of thinking and structuring that these organizations look at. And the disadvantage, which is why the first batch is remarkable. The first batch has no seniors. So the trickle down of information from seniors is a big differentiator in outcomes down the line. And you will see 2 types of deepening. One is deepening in terms of new companies, but even better, we already have very good companies. But a JP Morgan has come and let's say 3 students. Tomorrow I would want them to take 10 students. And I think that's the change that you will see happening also.
And I think a lot will also depend on how these guys perform at these roles.
Yeah.
And as alums, you then go there, you want to bring in more alums from your school and those kind of things. So what kind of lifelong learning opportunities for alumni that, you guys are planning on?
So 2 things I will say on alums. I think one of the reasons that these guys have done well is also that the BITS Pilani alums have chipped in. That's why so the BITS Pilani alums believe in the school, are supporting the school. So one thing to note in alums is that the day they graduate, they will integrate with the larger BITS Pilani alumni body, which covers a large number of business schools and is a significant asset, right? So that's one clear thing. The second thing I've always been saying is that down the line tomorrow, what you want to do is just as you have a budget for food, you have a budget for clothing, you should have a budget for your own education. And we should get this right in terms of going back to our own alumni and saying you can audit courses, come back to campus. Those are facilities. But to say that how do you stay in touch? If we can create a membership kind of a scheme where somebody becomes a lifelong member of a continuous learning program, and then they get some online courses, because the real issue is everybody knows they need to learn continuously. But if I ask you, okay, what do you need to learn continuously next year? Year after that, so nobody has a map. And there are too many courses out there. So if we can take the personal development part, we've already done. We have their psychometrics. We have conversations with interested students and actually direct them to what they need to learn. Some of which they will get from BITSoM, but some of which they can get early. But if you help people plan how they stay relevant, then you are enabling your graduates to succeed. This is one. The second is entrepreneurship. I believe that most MBAs today, many will want to start up, but they don't want to start up immediately. They want, you're an example, right? So 3 years, 5 years, then they put enough savings, enough track record and some gut for domains. So our incubation should not be just MBA incubation, it should be alumni incubation. So that 5-year window for alumni, I think is a very big thing for them to start ventures.
Right. And again, looking back, what do you think could have gone better?
Hindsight is always 20/20.
Yeah.
But I would say that, what happens when you start a new school? You start the school and you are putting a lot of things together. And summer internship hits you in 2 months.
Yes.
So looking back, I would have postponed summer internships by another 2 months to give the school more time to build networks.
Yeah.
But all of that is done.
Yeah, that's right.
The structures are in place. The reputation is in place, the word of mouth is in place. Today, an external speaker who comes to BITSoM to speak to our students comes back and tells me your students are as good as any class and they seem to be more motivated than many classes. So that will tell over a period of time.
Great. What's your message to the applicants who are out there who are looking to apply now or in the future?
with every passing year, we are going to be a tougher and tougher school to get into. We are seeing evidence of that already. The good news is this: we are interviewing the whole person. So whatever are your strengths, make sure you have depth in your strengths. Okay. And the second thing I will say is this: I can confidently say that the quality of educational inputs in BITSoM is as good or better than any school in the country. The quality of faculty is as good or better. BITSoM's real advantage is the combination of the inputs and the attention we place on the individual. So if you're somebody who's looking to find yourself and express yourself, then this is a school in the right place for you.
Thank you so much, sir, for taking out time, and all the best for the upcoming batches. Looking forward to seeing BITSoM grow to greater heights.
It's always a pleasure to speak to you. I think you have energy and initiative and so many ideas of your own. So thank you so much, man. Thank you.
So overall, great start, both in terms of the kind of companies that have come in and definitely the placement numbers as well. If I look at the portfolio of companies that have been there, you name it, all the big names have been there, from McKinsey to Pidilite to JP Morgan, etc., and a lot of IB and PE firms as well. And the great part here is Aditya Birla Group, not a lot of placements, or at least as much as people would have expected, are from ABG Group companies. So that goes to show the faith that the other set of companies or the market has in BITSoM. If I look at the numbers, to be honest, in the first place, numbers did seem that I could have, you could have got a slightly higher number in terms of averages. However, if you dissect those numbers by the kind of experience that people have had or the kind of roles that have come in, I think it all falls into space. Because if you compare an ROI or at least a financial ROI, it's over a longer period of time. And the second part is definitely when you compare averages of B schools, you should look at averages in terms of the kind of experience ranges people have gone through. And BITSoM fits right at the top with respect to that as well. Over 30 lakhs of average placements for the top 30% or so of the batch, which is a great number at the end of the day. I think the more important part is the kind of growth that I've seen in terms of the students that have been a part of this program. I have mentored a few when they started out and they applied to BITSoM, and the kind of sea change that I see in their perspectives and the kind of their thinking, and more importantly, having them a long-term view is something that's the best ROI that one can have out of a B school. Overall, it's a great making of a great institution that they're trying to build here, and with an alum pool coming in, and more importantly, a bigger campus and a wider ecosystem, I'm sure things are looking up for BITSoM and their MBA program. Overall, if you liked what you saw here, do drop in a comment, or if you have any questions about the program or the placements or anything else, do drop a comment or reach out to us at strategyforgmat.com, and we'll be more than happy to assist you in terms of all your queries. Thank you.